Thank you for taking the time to participate in today's webinar. It's NSK's Asset Improvement Program. So most engineers best know Brammer, Buck and Hickman for expertise in the delivery of industrial products and solutions across Europe. Today's webinar is really aligned with our company strategy. Advise, apply, advance. Advise, anticipating customer needs. Apply, delivering innovative products and solutions. And advance, creating value with technical and advanced services. Our webinar today is all about how we can improve productivity through improved reliability and partnership with one of our core suppliers, NSK Bearings. So to start, my name is Peter Burrows, the Technical Director for Brammer, Buck and Hickman in the UK. But today's presentation is being delivered today by a very good friend of mine, NSK's global leader for their value-added program, Andy Burstow. And over to you.
As Pete's already said, today really is about raising the awareness of our asset improvement program. AIP's been around for a few years now, and it's really focused on creating value for end user customers by combining the technical knowledge, the products and the service range of NSK with the knowledge that we acquire working with our distributors at your plant, at your end user plants, to understanding the issues, the challenges and the objectives that you guys have got to deal with on a day-to-day basis. It focuses on the three assets of plant, so production machinery, people and processes, otherwise called assets in NSK terminology. But I think it's fair to say that delivering improvements in all three of these areas makes a positive contribution to the bottom line of your business. So we're really looking for opportunities to improve in the plant, in the people, and in the processes. And by applying this AIP approach, you can save time, you can save money, but you can also reduce risk too, in terms of health, safety, and environmental risks, because AIP is not just a value creation process. If we improve the mean time between failure of your rotating equipment like electric motors, gearboxes, pumps, fans, etc., at the same time that reduces risk, financial risk, and potentially environmental and safety. So the way it works is once we identify a customer issue or challenge, and we've fully understood it, and I'll explain in a few minutes how we do that, we then apply a service from our AIP menu, which again I'll share with you in a couple of minutes, to find a solution which will take away the problem or the challenge that you've identified. And this approach, as I said earlier, has been around for a few years now and is present in lots of different industries: food and beverage, metals industries, aggregates, mining and cement, chemicals and petrochemical, machine tool, and many more too. I won't list them all. Okay, so this is the value cycle approach. This is how we really identify a problem in the first place and then take it through to a successful conclusion. So it starts with the first step, which is called evaluation. In other words, we talk to you, the customer, we take information from you about the challenge or the issue that you're trying to address. If possible, we like to visit site to look at the physical asset, whether it's a machine, whether it's to speak to people, if your issue is knowledge, or whether it's to investigate a process to see where process improvements will be. It's also possible to do the evaluation stage online, though, virtually, which is very important, obviously, current situation. Once we've got that data and we've analysed the data, we'll then come back to you with a recommendation. So we'll use our learning, our knowledge, our experience to create a solution. And at that point, we'll also try and forecast what we believe the benefits and the savings will be by taking on board our recommendation. Third stage, if you're happy with the recommendation from us, we can help you with the implementation if necessary. So, for example, it may be assistance in bearing installation, bearing lubrication, bearing alignment, or some other form of assistance if necessary. And then when it's operational, if we need to refine it further for improved performance, we can also assist and support in that phase too. The next step, step 4, is validation. You know, when we do the evaluation initially, we try and understand the cost of the problem to your business. At stage 2, we try and forecast the savings. as I said a few minutes ago. So at stage 4, we want to make sure that we're on track to deliver those savings as forecasted. And this is really important for you guys in maintenance particularly, because being able to demonstrate the value that you add and the money that you're saving for your organisation can be very helpful at a senior executive level if you're trying to secure additional funding for the maintenance team or additional resources. And the final stage of the 5-step value cycle is what we call extension. In other words, we've done a good job on the project that we've just completed. Now we'd like to collect some more data from elsewhere on your plant to try and improve other areas for improved reliability or more, efficiency and effectiveness improvements. So that's the value cycle. It's a collaborative approach, working with you guys to understand the data so we can put forward a solution and then document it for you. This is the service menu. So really there are 4 quadrants to this menu. I'm going to focus on all of the aspects of the menu very briefly as we go through the presentation, but I would at this point just like to stress the survey section, because this is really the starting point. If we can do a store survey, if we can do a workshop audit, if we can do a process map of your production process, and if we can get some bearing data from you in terms of the codings, the part numbers, and the consumption of bearings, we generally find that we can find areas for improvement that will improve reliability or will reduce your costs. So that's a really good starting point to work with us into the store, in the stores, in the workshop, and in the production environment. But let's have a look at each one individually. First of all, the store survey. What is it? Well, it's a survey focused on the storage and handling conditions. It's focused on your current levels of knowledge of bearing coding systems. So again, we're looking for bearing part number accuracy, etc. And we're also looking to identify any damaged or obsolete parts. Damaged parts can be a risk because if they're inadvertently fitted to the machines, they're going to fail prematurely. It's going to cost you some money. So identifying these kind of components is a very important part of this service. It's an opportunity for you to potentially rationalize and reduce your inventory costs, which will release working capital. And it's also a good opportunity for us to understand your bearing stock, so we can make best practice recommendations on the selection, the storage methods, and the stock rotational process. The benefits for the customer: documented review, supported with digital images as necessary, a bearing condition assessment where we'll identify good quality, damaged, or somewhere in between. Maybe the packaging's damaged, but the bearing itself is fine. We'll make some recommendations on what we find. Also an opportunity to consolidate stock. Maybe you've got the same bearing, but under different part numbers in different locations in the stores. Again, that's dead money tied up or duplication. It also helps us to understand your brand preferences, to give us a flavour of the preferred brands that you're working with, and where that might present some further opportunities for rationalisation or standardisation. Another output very often of the store survey is that we can identify your high bearing consumption applications. And they're always worth investigating. Why is it that you use so many bearings on a particular application? Maybe it's because you've got a lot of those assets, pumps or motors, for example, or maybe there's a reliability issue that's not been noticed. So again, opportunity for improvement. And finally, it's an opportunity for us to identify obsolete stock and make recommendations for you to quarantine that in a different location. Workshop survey is really an audit focused on the condition, the tools and fitting practices, and any workshop standards that may or may not exist in your maintenance or engineering workshop. This, again, the ultimate objective of this is really to identify ways to optimize the bearing fitting practices, lubrication practices, and also identify any particular training needs or opportunities to improve the knowledge of your maintenance technicians and the engineering team in general. Also, in the absence of any existing workshop standards or standard operating procedures, we can recommend standard work instructions for the installation, lubrication, and safe removal of bearings. So again, adding value and creating a safer working environment for your maintenance teams and a more financially stable environment. What do you get from a workshop survey? Again, we provide a fully documented assessment, including digital images, a certificate when the required pass mark is achieved, and it's an opportunity again for the engineering contacts in your organisation to meet the sales engineers and the product specialists from both NSK and also from Brammer and Hickman. The process map is a survey focused on completely documenting the key assets in your production process, with a particular focus on mission critical bearing applications. Even small bearings, small deep groove populometric bearings, if it's fitted to a mission critical piece of equipment, when it fails, it's putting your business at risk. So the purpose of the process map is for us to understand where those applications are, make you aware of some of the potential risks that we see that could affect bearing life, and where possible, recommend some upgrade solutions. So the one you can see, the image you can see on the right hand side of this slide, is a real example from a cement plant. So the first column on the left, where you see the photos, they're obviously contaminated environments. The middle column is our description of what we see the risks being on each of those individual applications. And the column on the right hand side would be our recommended upgrade solutions. When we're doing the process map, obviously it's very important to have access to the right people. So one of the first things for us is to identify the right people to access on site that really understand the plant and really understand the issues. And typically it could vary from plant or maintenance management teams, plant or maintenance engineers, continuous improvement or reliability engineers, but also speaking sometimes to the machine operators and the production managers can be very helpful too, because the machine operators in particular are very often the first people that notice any change in the operating condition of the machine itself. So typically a process map would involve interacting and collaborating with one or more than one of these type of job titles. It's a start to finish process. Very important for us to start at the raw material stage and end at the finished product output stage, because that way we can link any problems that we identify with potential problems further down the production line or earlier on in the production line, either upstream or downstream. So very important to do it as an end-to-end project. And the fourth survey is what we call the bearing cross-reference. In essence, it's a bearing data cleansing exercise to make sure that you guys have got the right part numbers in place, because you probably know already, but the bearing part numbers sometimes can be a little bit confusing. One digit difference, one letter, one number difference can make a real difference to the performance of the bearing, you know, for example, internal clearances. So it's very important that we do this check to make sure you've got the right information. We'll also, doing this survey, ask for the consumption data too, if you're happy to release it to us. Because in that way, we can also at the same time look for opportunities to reduce your consumption of bearings. And in so doing, that will reduce your maintenance costs and your expenditures. So we'll come back to you with a full report. We'll leave your initial original data intact, but we'll also add some NSK part numbers to the spreadsheet too. So it gives you an option to buy the NSK brand moving forward if you prefer to do that. So number of benefits really. Opportunity again to rationalize and standardize your inventory. Opportunity to improve your bearing performance. And definitely an opportunity, as I said earlier, to reduce your bearing consumption. The other elements of the service menu, first of all, application review. This is where you bring us a problem, or we identify a problem on a particular machine. And this is really where the NSK engineer, working with the local Brammer and Hickman guy or product specialist, would come to site, ideally, to do an inspection of the existing bearing arrangements that's giving you the issue. And then we'll do some analysis of the current bearing performance, okay, and ultimately come back to you with some recommendations on what the problem is and how to solve it. It's a documented report like the one you can see on the right, and this was one that we did in North Yorkshire for a BBH customer fairly recently. Also offer machine design support too. So if you're looking to change the performance characteristics of one of your production machines, make it run a bit faster, take a heavier load. Clearly, those new demands will put pressure on the existing bearing arrangements. So this is where we can work with you to make sure that you select the correct bearing arrangements for the upgraded output requirement. And we can produce the drawings to go along with that, the dimensional drawings, give you all the technical data about the speed ratings, the load ratings, and provide that to you with a series of options for your consideration. This is really making sure that whatever changes you make to your machines, you're going to get the optimum bearing arrangements. You're probably familiar with this one anyway, OEM part conversion. But for sure, if you've had new equipment, new plant installed recently, it will probably have come along with a recommended list of spare parts from the OEM, initially supplied by the OEM. I think we all know that, generally speaking, the prices from the OEMs will be somewhat higher than it would be from industrial distributors. So this is an opportunity for us to identify those OEM spares, cross-reference the part numbers where we can to standard commercially available bearings, and then give you the current price and availability on each of those items. We offer a diagnostic service, and this really ties into the first reliability seminar from Brammer, Buck and Hickman a few weeks ago, when Jason Tweedy covered the subject of condition monitoring. So again, this is the collaboration with you, the end user customer, the Brammer, Buck and Hickman guy, and obviously the NSK guy, to look at and try and identify the onset of any defects in the bearings while they're operating. Getting that heads up before the catastrophic bearing failure occurs is obviously a good thing to do. So we have a guy in the UK that works alongside the BBH team called Colin. This is the guy in the picture here. He's level 2, VA level 2 qualified, and he's got his box of tricks there which provides full spectrum analysis to try and identify what that current bearing condition is and make some predictions in terms of what you need to do before the thing fails. Very important offering really is the training offering from NSK. So this first part of the training offering is really focused on bearing knowledge. So this is good for apprentices, for people who are new into engineering, for anybody really that's involved in the fitting, maintaining and replacement of bearings. We can do this face-to-face when conditions permit us to do that, or we can offer it as a virtual online course too. So this is really about improving the skill levels in the engineering teams when it comes to bearings, multiple access points available for people to take the training, and I'll give you a flavour of the detailed modules available in a few slides' time. We also offer a lot of training on the application of bearings. So these are really a selection of training courses for people involved in using and fitting bearings. It's a modular menu that allows you to pick whichever modules are right for your business. It's not a one-size-fits-all. You can choose whichever ones are right for you. And it's a combination of both practical and theoretical modules. Again, we can deliver these on site, or under COVID-19, we can deliver these on a virtual session like we're doing now. The benefits of going through these courses are improving the understanding of bearings for certain applications, also improving the understanding of why bearings fail, what to look for, because we cover the most common bearing failure modes. We share pictures, or in real life, face-to-face training, we share actual examples of certain bearing failure modes. It also provides an appreciation of the best practice fitting techniques when you're installing bearings, and also provides an understanding of bearing accuracy and the effect of bearing accuracy on the performance of the bearing under its normal operating conditions. And this is the menu. Okay, so it starts at a very simple level, introduction to bearings. So covering the different types of bearings, the different loading characteristics that they're designed to deal with. And then moving up to Bearing Technology 1, which is an insight into the detailed design features of bearings. And then the more specialist Technology 2 courses. There's also a course for handling and storage of bearings as well. And this is one that's often overlooked, because the first point of call for a bearing when it comes into your plant is normally the stores. And the way it's handled and the way it's stored can have a major effect on its actual operating life. So it's good practice to make sure the guys in the stores fully understand how they shouldn't handle and store bearings. And then, as you can see, there are other different modules for different types of bearing related subjects. So if you're interested and you wanted more information on this, or you wanted a copy of this, please feel free to contact Peter Burrows at Brammer Buck and Hickman, and he can supply the detailed menu. We also offer a range of industry specific training too. And the two examples in the images, I know you can't read the detail, but the top one is metals production, so steel, and the bottom one is the paper industry production process. What these training courses provide are examples of typical problems at each stage of the manufacturing process and what the NSK solution products are to deal with those problems at each stage of the process. So we do these for a range of industries, not just the two shown here. We do food and beverage, we do individual assets like pumps and compressors, electric motors, and then we do other industries like wind turbine, rail, petrochemical, etc. So, you know, again, if you're interested, please get in touch with Peter for more details. A couple of things on bearing condition analysis. Again, we offer this as a service, so non-destructive bearing condition review to assess the operating conditions and the working environment for installed bearing arrangements. Again, with a view to giving you a heads up for any potential risks that you might face on a given application and make some recommendations on how to avoid bearing failures. But we also offer a failed bearing analysis service too. So if you do experience bearing failures, particularly recurring bearing failures on an individual application, this is a service whereby when the bearing that's failed comes off the machine, if you can bag that bearing in its condition when it comes off the machine, in other words, don't clear any lubricant out, don't clear any contaminants out, just bag it in its failed condition, you can send it back to Brammer Buck and Hickman, they can send it to us, and we will do an analysis on the failed components. So the raceways, the rolling elements, the cage. We'll look at any lubricant residue that might be left in the bearings, and all of those pieces of information will give us a good clue as to why that bearing failed. We can then come back to you with some recommendations and some things that you can do to prevent future recurrence in that same failure mode. So we'll give you a full detailed report, and as I said, offer you some alternative upgrade solutions where appropriate to do so. But the other part of the AIP program is lubrication analysis. So again, you know, this is analysis of the bearing grease or oil to identify condition, contamination, any water ingress or any oxidation. You know, 52% of bearing failures are due to the contamination of the lubricant. And actually, when you look at all the rotating equipment failures, it's around about 20–21% are down to bearing failures. So it's a key area to have a good understanding on and to be on top of. So again, we can offer this as a service. If we can get samples of your grease, send them across to us and we can do some analysis and give you a report on the current condition and some recommendation where we do find wear or existing contamination. And finally, we offer a service for large diameter bearings. So this is probably more appropriate for the heavy industries like steel, metals, mining, aggregates, cement, where we do a full material and dimensional analysis using our 5 core competencies of tribology, materials, numerical simulation and mechatronics, as well as manufacturing engineering expertise. This is where we will look at the material condition, we'll do some dimensional checks on the bearing, checking for roundness, etc. And we'll come back to you with our determination of what caused the bearing to fail in the first place. So this is a very specialist service. It's a service that's done in our European technology centres. So this does have a lead time in terms of turnaround, depending on the size and the nature of the bearing. But nonetheless, for heavy duty, large diameter bearings, it is a valuable value-adding service. Okay, so look, that's the AIP program. So just to wrap it up, really, what's in it for you guys, the customer? Well, first of all, it completes the circle. You get a good availability of the bearings from Brammer Buck and Hickman. You get a customer service from Brammer Buck and Hickman, and we can also now enjoy the NSK technical support and value-adding solutions as part of that process too. The ultimate objective is for us to increase the efficiency, the effectiveness, and the reliability of your plant, your people, and your processes. And in doing that, we maximize the productivity of your business. I mentioned earlier as well, there are safety benefits of improving the reliability of your rotating equipment and machines. And there's no doubt there's a direct correlation between highly reliable plants and safe plants. You'll have improved skills for your people, so better skilled people. So again, from selection, from handling, from installation and ongoing maintenance of your bearings, you're giving the bearing the best possible chance to last as long as possible, reducing your maintenance costs and improving your output, which means your customers will be happier too. There's optimized inventory benefits. I mentioned a few times through this session, looking at your stock profile, improving that stock profile, getting rid of any damaged or obsolete stock, and optimizing the stock levels will have a positive impact on your working capital. Adding value in other areas too. There'll be lots of opportunities along the way through these insightful conversations with you for us to find other value-adding opportunities. So ultimately, we're reducing the total cost of ownership of the bearings. It's not just about buying the bearing, it's about getting the maximum value through its operating life and ensuring that you are managing those costs to get a positive return on your investment on all your bearing purchases. Okay, so does it work? Yep, it absolutely works. So here are some examples. These are all joint Brammer Buck and Hickman NSK solutions in the UK. So you can see a couple here from Tata Steel in Scunthorpe, one of which was a £263,000 saving. The one in the middle is £355,000 saving. And the one on the right, I would just like to say a few words about. This was a deep groove ball bearing, 20mm bore or 25mm bore, a fairly small bearing. But these bearings were being replaced after a few hours of installation due to contamination. And just a simple upgrade seal arrangement, which was a few pence more on the price of the bearing. Seriously, a few pennies more, not pounds, yeah? Resulted in reliability improvements that delivered over £500,000 worth of documented savings for the customer. So this approach really works. And it's not just the UK, it's a global program. I'm sharing with you here 3 examples from the US. These are all for heavy duty industries, so mining, cement and steel. But remember, please, we also offer this program in some of the more hygienic environments like food, pharmaceutical, and also the petrochemical and chemical plants too. But all of these are impressive examples of documented savings where the customer's been happy to acknowledge and sign off some documented savings have been achieved by working with us as a 3-way collaboration. And I just want to point out the first one, the $5 million one. The original bearings installed on that plant, OEM bearings, were from another world leading 3-letter manufacturer, and they were lasting 18 months. We were able to recommend our solution tough steel bearing, which is unique to NSK, and we extended the life to over 6 years between failures. Very impressive example of how working with the experts, we can really deliver some value-adding solutions. So just to finish, improvement does pay for everybody. From a Brammer Buck and Hickman point of view, it means these guys can understand and work closer with you to have a better understanding of your challenges, and hopefully that leads to a much longer mutually beneficial partnership together. And for you guys, more importantly, the end user customers, it delivers real savings that hopefully you can put in front of your senior management too, that can prove that maintenance is really adding value in your organization. Because when it's done well, there's no doubt maintenance is a profit contributor, not a cost center. Okay, so thanks for listening, everybody. I'll just like to hand you back to Peter to finish the webinar.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Lots of really great information that will help us and our customers improve plant productivity working with NSK.